Okay, this is a tutorial to introduce you the interface of Microsoft Access and also explain the sample database that we use. The sample database that we use for the tutorial that goes with the PowerPoint slide is this Class.mdb. So if you download it, you can double click on it. You will open it up the database, and in Microsoft Access, which is the software that opened this database file, you're going to see actually a navigation pane on the left-hand side here. And if you drop it down, you're going to see 4 database objects: table, query, and forms and report. And table and query are the 2 most important database objects in the first place. Form we will cover in another tutorial. Report is the least important one that we're going to skip that. But in general, the foundation of a database is really just a set of tables. So we'll start explaining table first. Here, if you click table, you're going to see a number of tables that represent objects, which can be people, organizations, business transaction data to a certain extent. In this tutorial, the class database, we have a training organization offering various courses, and they have different divisions. And they have instructor to staff courses, and the offering is really just an offering of a course. So if I have an MIS course, I may offer multiple sections. So each section is really an offering, and it's a separate table from the course table. Registration basically are the enrollment of student here that sign up for various offering. You don't sign up a course, you sign up an offering, a specific offering out of the course. So in this simple database, we have altogether 6 tables. And the first step in understand how to work on a particular database is to understand what table the database may have and what kind of information has been stored there. So if you go into just one of the table, like course, if you double click, you're opening up the table with the actual data, if there's any real data in it. So right now we have 5 courses. We have course ID, course title, the division ID, that the division who offer it, and the course fee. Okay, so we have actually 4 columns that describe this course. And if you click on this toolbar, the first icon over here, we are actually right now in the viewing mode. So we're viewing the actual data in the database table. If you click this view, you're switching to actually the so-called design view, the design view of the table. Over here, we can see the 4 columns that we use to describe the table. You see a little key icon over here, over the first course ID column. It's indicating that the course ID is the primary key. For each column, you can specify its data type. If you drop it down, you're going to see a number of data type: short, long text, numbered, date and time, currency. Auto number is just a unique ID, which will automatically assign a sequential number when you create an instance of a table when the primary key is the auto number type, data type, Boolean value, etc. Okay, and let's look at fee. Fee is number is a data type, but if you really get into it, you'll find out that there are a number of number data type that you need to choose from: integer, long integer, single, double position, etc., or decimal point. So there's also additional information about a column other than the data type that you can specify over here at the bottom here. So this will be how you would define a table or examine the structure of a table in terms of all the column it may have, and also what is the primary key. Okay, you can deselect the primary key or define the primary key when you're working with a table. And the best way to understand how you will use a database is actually to learn how to use query. Query is how you retrieve data from database tables, a single table or multiple table. Let's look at just an existing query. Okay, let me close what I've been working on, and when you switch to query, you're going to see a list of query. You're seeing a different icon. For a delete query, they have this X marking that it's a delete query. And for updating query, it has a different icon. But most of the time when we refer to query, it's actually for read only. That has this type of icon, like datasheet icon. And so let's look at just this one, course under 400. I usually will maximize it. Just from the operational viewpoint, if you're done with it, you can just close it by clicking on this check mark. Don't check on this check mark on the top, because that you're going to close the whole access. Okay, I can open it up again. You can drag and change its size, but it's easier to just maximize it. Okay, this is actually the result of the query. If you want to learn how to design the query or specify the query, you will switch from the datasheet view to the design view. In the design view, let me change this a little bit. You're going to see actually over here two panes. The upper pane actually show you the table that has been chosen or used, and it can be a single table or multiple table, and how those tables may be related. And you can start drag and drop all the columns that you have from the table that you have selected. And you can specify the criteria. For instance, in this case, we want the course fee to be less than $400. And eventually, when you run it, we're going to see the course title, course fee, and division who offer this course, and the name of the division who offer it. But we're limiting the result to actually course fee, that's $400 US. View and run are the same thing. Basically, you run the query, you're going to get the result. Another view is a SQL view. SQL view actually will show you the actual SQL statement, which is a standard structured query language for interacting with the database in terms of retrieving data, insert, update, deleting data in the database table. And you're encouraged to actually learn how to write the SQL statement, although in most of the demo, we're going to just use the kind of drag and drop design view to formulate our query. But what we actually store when we save the query, you can click here to save what you have done. When you save the query, you're actually saving the definition of the query, which is really the SQL statement. Let's kind of recreate this query from scratch so you can see how things progress. So let me just close this. I'm going to kind of save it, okay? And create, this is how you're going to create database object. Remember we mentioned there are 4 database objects. Table over here, query, the toolbar icon for query. Forms, there's a number of things you can use to deal with forms, and eventually report. So it's table, query, forms, and report. Just briefly, form are data entry forms for you to enter data, or you can actually retrieve and view data online in the format of forms. Report is really meant for printing purpose. So it's less interactive. So that's the part that we're not going to discuss. In terms of database, forms and report together form the application level object which allow you to interact with the database without knowing what's the underlying table or what kind of query are involved. It's meant for the end user. In this course, we're focusing mainly on the underlying database object, which is table and query, which is fundamental for you to understand how database work. So let's create a query. I prefer, instead of using query wizard, I prefer to use query design, which allow you to start things from scratch. And you will be prompted to query, to select actually a list of table that a single or multiple table that you're going to use to retrieve data. In this case, we want to know about courses that course less than $400. So I'll select course. I would choose division later. I can do it now, but prefer to do it later. So I'll close this. If you want to know the course ID, course title, course, the division who offer it, and the course fee, you can just select those column. And there's a different way to select a table's column. You can drag and drop, or just double click like what I did earlier. Now, if I view or run the query, I'm seeing actually all the course information. Okay, pretty much every records in my course table. Okay, if I want to limit the course listing to course its fee, which is less $400, I can type in the criteria less 400, okay, which will limit the result to fewer courses and only courses that's less than $400. Okay. However, in order for the end user to see the result in a much more readable, meaningful way, for instance, if I run it, the division doesn't mean anything to most of the end user. So I would like to show the division's name, but division name is not stored in the course table. It is actually, let me click right mouse button here and choose show table. Here, I know the division table has the division ID and division name, so I need to join this with this division table with the course table in order to get the division name. So I will choose the division. Over here, this two table is not connected. Okay, the database that we're using, the Access database, supports a so-called relational database, and in the relational database, tables in a database sometimes are related to each other. In this case, we know the courses are offered by various divisions. The way they're related to each other is that I store a division ID representing which division is offering the course. And however, I'm not storing the division name or the director's ID for that matter. And because I can always use the division ID from the course to find out the division name. So here I need to drag and drop connecting the two common fields, the div here in the course table and the d_id in the division table. And so kind of relay this two tables, use the common field. The term that we use is the primary key d_id in the division table is pointing to a foreign key div in the course table. The div is a foreign key because it serves as a primary key in another table in the division table. Got it? So it is better that you do this drag and drop connecting these two common fields and make it a relationships. And this, if you double click on the line, they're going to show that actually how these two columns are related to each other. Okay. Now I can choose anything from the division table to be displayed. So I'm going to choose the division's name. I'm going to move just the fee after division name because it makes sense to have division ID and name next to each other. So if I view, now I know the division 020, division 20 is computer science department, division 30 is the accounting department, and the list of the course fee. Okay, so this is kind of how you would actually create a query. And once you have done that, if you want to save the query, you click save, and then you would just say course list under 400. So I can save this query, and you can close the query now since I have saved it. If you want to run it again, you just double click and it will come out. You can go to the design view to modify it if you wish. If you want to see the SQL statement, how this is written, you can just switch to the SQL view. So this is how it is done. And another important tool which we would show you here is the database tool, particularly the relationships diagram. Okay, let me maximize it. Here we're actually seeing all the table that's in the database, including the division, the instructor who work under the division, and the instructor's basic information, all the column for the instructor, and the course and the multiple offering that each course may have, and the student who sign up for a class enrollment, which is really an associated table that connect offering and student to record students' registration, and which allowed us at the end of the course to record students' grade. Okay. The relationships is represented by a line connecting common field among two tables. Okay, and you can see here it's a little bit small, but for instance, each course has one course. There's an infinity sign, means offer multiple offering. Each division has multiple instructor working underneath it. Okay, I'm going to add to this diagram a new relationship which should exist but hasn't been defined yet. As you can see in the earlier query demo, that each course is offered by a division. So this div is really a foreign key pointing to this d_id, where it serves as a primary key. So what we can do now is just drag and drop. Now we can associate these two field, one in each in different table. One is in division table, one is the course table. And I can just say create, and usually we will select the so-called enforced referential integrity. If I double click, what that means is that I cannot have, as example, I cannot have a course offered by division, let's say division 100, but that division 100 does not exist in the division table. That just doesn't make any sense. So if you choose enforce referential integrity, the system would actually make sure that if you want to add a course with a division that doesn't exist, the system will prevent you from adding that new course. So that would enhance the integrity of the data we have in the database by the database software itself. And this is actually a one-to-many relationships. One, an infinity sign. You're going to see the infinity sign over here, okay? And the beauty of building this relationship diagram or database diagram is that, let me close this, is that when that is done, when you need to use some of the related table in a query, which we actually call join, like we have here, okay, we're joining division and the course. Let me remove this division table, like what we had before. Now, if I add the division table back in, show table, choose division, add, the relationship is shown here automatically because we have defined it under the database tools relationship tool. So automatically the system knows how to join these two tables because that has been previously defined at the database level. You don't have to do it at the query level. And in most of the case, that should be the way of doing things. Okay. So that's actually how you would explore a database in terms of a list of table, and how you would actually create query, run the query, and modify the query if needed. And let me get rid of this criteria just for now and maybe show a little bit. For instance, right now I'm actually seeing all the courses that has been offered. I forgot to choose the division name, so I'm going to just insert it right after the division ID. Okay, so all of them will be listed, and the query that you're getting will be sorted by some default sequence. However, in the query tool, we're allowed to sort. Here you're going to sort based on the columns in the that you have selected. For instance, if I want to sort it by fee in ascending or descending order, I'm going to choose ascending. So I'm going to see the course based on the cheapest one to the most expensive one. That's how you may sort it. But if you want to sort it based on the division ID, you can certainly do that. You will say division ID. In that case, you need to deselect the course fee. Okay. And so it's very flexible in terms of what column you want to see, what criteria you would like to set in terms of to limit the kind of the record you're going to retrieve, and also how you want to sort the result of the query based on certain column that you have selected. Okay, that's it. This tutorial to show you how to get around within Access. There are many other tutorials that show you use the same class database to show you how to do certain things like creating table, creating more advanced query, and how to design and create forms. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.